unpacking these three words that you're hearing, complementary, alternative, and integrated. We tend to use alternative, and when we define it on our website, as practices that are being used instead of conventional medicine, and complementary as practices that are being used together with conventional medicine. A third term comes into the vocabulary talking about this domain, which is the term integrated. And there are a number of practitioners across the country who call themselves integrated medicine practitioners. Patients are attracted to these practices because of a more holistic approach. And I've visited a number of integrated practitioners, and I'm impressed with the way in which they try to steer patients to less invasive approaches and a lower use of pharmaceutical agents when it's appropriate. But it is correct that the integrated medicine practice is often not as evidence-based as would be optimal. Now, conventional docs also use lots of interventions that don't have an adequate evidence base. And I think all of us here at DNA consider that our job as people overseeing the taxpayer investment in research is building that evidence base. I don't see patients myself anymore, but I was a practitioner taking care of mostly diabetic patients when I was at the University of Michigan. And I was aware how hard it was to deal with complex problems where the scientific evidence didn't tell you for sure what was going to work. And also the need for a good practitioner to be sensitive to what the patient was looking for, to be able to generate an expectations and reassurance. That is certainly part of healing.
I have a question explaining Dr. Briscoe. For which diseases do you see people using integrated medicine the most often? And which ones are the most effective for? And which ones are seeing most research? In other words, are those areas overlap? Is it the same diseases that people are using it for and that are being researched, or is it too varied?
I can speak for my practice at KU Integrated Medicine, and we have, I'll tell you a little bit about the clinic. We have physicians MDs, we have a advanced practice nurse, we have a naturopathic doctor, we have 2 master's level nutritionists, so we work as a team. We're really an interprofessional team. And the kind of disease processes that we see are largely chronic illness, and that can be anything from fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, chronic pain, all the way to cancer. And really our approach is essentially the same for all. We look at nutritional underpinnings. We feel that's the most important thing, as that's their nutritional intake or diet. And then on top of that, we do a biomedical evaluation of each patient for vitamins, for minerals, for essential fatty acids, their amino acids. And we supplement according to deficiencies. We don't just give a wide array of supplements because that's what somebody else does. So we try to do a very specific analysis of each person that comes into our clinic. And then on top of that, we may add things like the IV vitamin C that may be helpful if it seems appropriate, and we have partnership with their traditional primary care physician, their conventional primary care physician, or their oncologist.
And some of the commenters were interested in learning more about applications of integrated medicine for specific disorders such as Crohn's or Alzheimer's. And those are examples because I really have not encountered that much for either of them. And I was wondering if you know of any research going on in UCL Grace, we could call our research about it.
Well, there is a great deal of interest in inflammatory bowel disease. Conventional pharmaceutical medications are helpful, but not always. And research is looking at acupuncture and meditation and those sorts of processes. But I think extending it further, looking at maybe probiotic therapy, the beneficial bacteria that lives in the gut that just all of a sudden has really exploded on the scene. But that can be fraught with difficulty because there may be crosstalk between the bacteria that someone may be taking as a probiotic and the resident GI flora. So that may actually trigger a flare in their inflammatory bowel. So much has to be done in that area as well. But this is an exciting day for gastrointestinal illnesses.
The work on how probiotics affect the gut flora is an important area of investment for us. The insights that come out of the Human Microbiome Project are, I think, very much going to change how we think about probiotics and indeed how we think about dietary components. I am not a big fan of using supplements when what is really needed is emphasis on a healthy diet. The epidemiology data tell us over and over again that diets rich in fruits and vegetables are an important part of health. And every study that I've been involved in overseeing that has tried to capture the benefits of fruits and vegetables and put it in a pill, and there have been a number in my many years of overseeing research, has not succeeded in capturing the benefits of a fruit and vegetable-rich diet in changing the course of chronic disease. So I think that an important area right now is figuring out what are good strategies for the agents. How do we get the patient in charge? How do we get patients to really take on the lifestyle changes that are associated with good health?
And it's interesting, too, when they have a chronic disease diagnosis, it makes them very interested in change. We see that frequently in our clinic.
Absolutely.
Dr. Briscoe, there's one question also that was posed specifically for you. One of the participants, Jeff, is asking, which over-the-counter supplements do you feel are important in supplements to keep the temperature? And are there any contraindications when it comes to supplements in cancer patients?
Well, we don't. First of all, I'd like to make a distinction about herbs. But we don't call them herbs. We call them medicinal plants because they're medicine. And they impact the detoxification pathway of cytochrome P450 in phase 2. And very little is known about that. And then secondarily, we're not sure exactly if they're impacting the detoxification pathways, how they may be interacting with conventional therapies. So medicinal plants are in a category by themselves, and we're very cautious when using medicinal plants. And again, with the vitamin and mineral therapies, we're doing interventions based on that patient's profile. So again, we don't send somebody to the health food store and say, well, this is off the shelf and use it. It's very individualized.
One of our participants also was asking, what is the biggest challenge for alternative medicine to be more widely adopted in the U.S.? Would it be more research or something different?
I think it's going to be more research. That's absolutely a no-brainer. Again, I'd like to point to the TAT trial, but also to my recent paper in Science Translational Medicine around ovarian cancer and the use of intravenous vitamin C or ascorbate. Now we've got a discussion going about this topic. It isn't a definitive answer, of course, but hopefully there'll be more research. And then we'll be able to give our patients choices.
This is a question that has a notion that there is a clear distinction between alternative medicine and evidence-based medicine. As practices develop an evidence-based, and sometimes that's observational and sometimes it's rigorous, randomized trials, some of these practices do become integrated into conventional care. Now, there are practices like hospice use, which came from outside the mainstream, but which are now an important part of how we care for people with substantial disability or at the end of life. And I think that is the model I would see as us striving to build an evidence-based. What is working and what is the evidence, and when should these practices be part of our overall healthcare system? And so the areas that we're investing in, like pain research, are areas where we feel there's a need for non-pharmacologic strategies as well as drugs to manage pain. And we're interested in which of these various practices with a long history in human health, which of these are really ready and need to and deserve to be part of the care offered by our healthcare system. I think this bifurcation is not serving anyone well. The real question is, how can we take better care of people?
And I'll second that. There was a wonderful editorial in the New England Journal in 1998 by Marcia Angel, who was the editor of that journal at that time, and she said it doesn't matter if it's a conventional therapy or an alternative therapy. Once it's investigated, if it's shown to work, it's just good medicine. And that's right, Dr. Briggs, we need to find these things that are good medicine and take them to people.
In other specific areas, either specific types of, or specific operative practices, or disease areas that you feel are particular priorities for study right now?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, well, I guess Dr. Briggs first.
Well, I've already, I think I like a broken record on pain, and that's because I think it is just so incredibly important. But basically, and this is from 20 years of overseeing clinical research, likely a small number of these practices may actually modify chronic disease. But I see the promise of many of these practices is helping with symptom management. And anybody who's active in the practice of medicine knows that what we spend a lot of our time is helping people with symptoms. And so I do believe that we need to focus on ways in which these various non-pharmacologic approaches can help people manage and bothersome or very disabling symptoms. So that's where I see us as placing a real emphasis. Other symptoms that matter, not sleeping well, anxiety, inability to function because of any of the loss of sleep or pain or feeling overwhelmed. This is a kind of disease of modern American life. And learning how the various traditional approaches, like meditative approaches, even yoga and Tai Chi, massage, acupuncture, can help with the stress of modern life, I think is really important. And I think most doctors who are taking care of patients know that.
Something that Dr. Briggs said came to mind, which I think is really important, is having this conversation with patients, and we often lose sight of that. And I know for myself and Dr. Briggs, we've been seeing patients for a long time, and the practice of medicine has changed. But one thing that we're very good at in integrated medicine is spending time with our patients and listening to them and taking their stories. So there's a real value to that as well. And some people may call it the placebo effect, but when a person can have their story heard and validated and valued, there's a healing component that occurs from that. So not just something you can put in your mouth and take, but that is that relationship.
I totally agree, Jean. Many of the trials of behavioral interventions have as the control time and attention. And when we compare time and attention to usual care, time and attention really helps. And that is something that our healthcare system has trouble dealing with. Our healthcare system is a lot more comfortable paying for stuff, paying for procedures than it is paying for time and attention.
Well, thank you very much. I'm afraid that we've run out of time on today's live chat. So Dr. Briggs and Dr. Driscoll, thank you both very much for joining us today. And thank you to our audience for liking today. I'd like to remind you that today's live chat will remain archived on this page. And please tune in for next week's live chat, which will be in a somewhat different format. They will run from February 14th through 16th, streaming live from the AAAS annual meeting in Chicago. In those, we'll be chatting about the following topics: science and religion, the science of solitary confinement, and cities of the future. Thank you.
Okay, so hello, and thank you for joining Science Magazine's live chat on donors' access to their personal data. I'm Brad Bible, Senior Editor of Commentary, joining from Science Headquarters in Washington, D.C. I'm pleased to welcome 3 guest experts. Joining from Boston is John T. Munshaw, and Reed Curie Fellow at Harvard Medical School and Assistant Professor at the Section of Molecular Cell Physiology of the University of Amsterdam. From London is Barbara Princess, Reader at the Department of Social Science, Health and Medicine at King's College London. And joining also from Washington, D.C. is John Wilbanks, Chief Science Officer at Sage Bionetworks. Thank you all for taking time to be with us today, and I look forward to the discussion. So, here we go. Our currency, the raw material that drives scientific research. If you're a physicist chasing the data at CERN or an ecologist measuring biodiversity in Amazon, you're probably not too concerned about whether the Large Hadron Collider or the steaming jungle sources of your data might ever want some access to the data you collect. But for those who study and collect data from human beings, the issue of data access is of central importance. Much has been written and regulated in this area over the years, with perspectives of ethics, law, commerce, and of course research. But 2 of our participants, John Keane and Barbara, recently wrote a policy for Science about what they see as a critically important yet underexplored aspect of this donors and data discussion. So to get started today, I'd like to give our audience a brief overview of what they, along with co-author George Church, discussed in the policy for. Then we'll turn to John for his talk on the issue, and then we'll turn to questions from the audience. So take it away.
Thank you, Brett. If I may start, I would like to introduce our claim, or the argument in our article, which is a very basic argument, and it is about a fundamental moral principle, namely of establishing reciprocity between researchers or clinicians or any other instance who takes data from people with the people who give those data. So it's not only limited to research, and certainly not only limited to clinical projects, and it is not about returning findings. Our argument is about access to the raw data that you submitted and that are extracted directly from your submission, which may be a biological sample, but it's as a biological scientist or in clinic, and it may also be a survey in social sciences you participated in. Currently, you give your data, and at some point, findings may be returned, but your donation as such disappears in more or less a black hole, and you do not know, you cannot check, you do not know where it is, to whom you gave it, and those basic data, you should have access to it to be able to establish a relationship with the party you gave it to. That is the core point of our argument.
If I may,
Barbara, what's that?
if I may, as Shaheen already mentioned, our argument is not about returning findings, and we are not saying that the returning to imply a discussion about returning findings is superfluous. We see the value of that. Our point is really, as Shaheen said, about the other point of the pipeline, of the data pipeline. We do not expect, or we do not suggest that people should actually all download their raw data and make use of it. Our argument is not about what people should do. Our argument is really about opportunities that people should have. And if I can use an analogy, we're not suggesting that if we use an analogy of a book, that we start force books on people who cannot or do not want to read. We are arguing that people who can and want to read should have access to books.
What's not to like? John, now, your thoughts on this. It sounds great. How do we make this work in the real world, given all the constraints of resources, infrastructure, and models, and that? What's your response?
Well, I think it's pretty hard right now to return these kind of data, because most of the sites are set up to return the data. They really think of the research system as sort of one research resource you can extract data from. And then you go off and you do your science and you get word of the rest of it. And that's, in many ways, I think the biggest barrier is the PIs thinking of participants as sort of resources that they can draw from, not people they need to be engaged with. There's some great but scary stories about IRBs and PIs talking about data return, saying, what if we just have PDF once a year that says what's happening in the research? And the PI saying, well, then if that happens, then people have to call my lab. And I think that's, we should getting past the hurdle saying we're dealing with people. These are people. And we're dealing with people who are the participants in the research. They're not subjects, but they're participants, they're partners. And it's that cultural reframe. Once you get past that cultural reframe, the technology to do this is not super complicated. Having databases that let people download data associated with an ID is not an impossible technical problem to crack. And an enormous number of nice kinds of things become possible if you allow these kinds of data to be accessed by participants. They can then go on and reinvest that data in new research. They can take the data and use it in their health context. They can pool it with other engaged citizens who are also interested in it. And so I think that there's just so many good externalities that can come from this, so many good political and social outcomes that can come from this, that it's going to happen. The question is whether we drag the researchers along or the researchers lead the way.
Excellent point. And with that, unless you have anything else you'd like to add, we have a big load of questions lined up here. So starting at the beginning, you ready? This is from David Gerwitz, who writes, you make a strong case for open access to personal raw data collected for biomedical research projects. So do you see, in the long run, related legislative action, possibly with penalties for researchers or projects denying their study participants raw data access? In other words, how do we make it happen? So again, what we need carrots and sticks here to drive this cultural reframe. Does legislature need to be involved? Funding bodies saying, do it this way or don't get the money?
Should I say something about legislation? I would say it's certainly true that it may have legislatory consequences, but with legislation, one of the fundamental issues is that rules and laws differ between countries. So basically, yes, but how that would look in practice and how it would differ between countries and also different funding bodies, that remains to be seen. I'm a bit wary of immediately establishing the fear that there might be repercussions of liability or denying of opportunity. Since we're just starting the discussion, and once we agree about this principal need for establishing such a two-way communication, we will see how to implement it in the various contexts and in the different countries.
I would absolutely agree to that. I'm personally also very much against trying to enforce this now by law. I think such new models work best if everyone is involved in the value of this. This model would not work in every context. It will take time for some contexts for this to be implemented more time than for other contexts. And I think to some extent, people will also vote with their feet. So if I'm a participant in a patient, and if I'm interested in my raw data, which of course is also not taking for granted, but if I want my raw data, then I'm more inclined to go to a place that actually provides this and explore about it. And I don't think we should now think about enforcing this alone.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on that, I think in the U.S. at least, expecting the Congress to do something large and substantial is probably not rational. And in the short term, I think we can look at the open access to cited literature as a model. That was a policy implemented by NIH. It started off as a request. After 5 years, the data showed that compliance with the request was between 2 and 4% of the particular mandate. And I think we'll see something similar from the funding bodies, but I don't think it will start with the federal funding bodies. I think it will start with some of the more non-traditional emerging funders of biomedical research, patient advocacy groups, disease foundations. These are organizations that really depend on the engagement of their members to raise the funds that go into the research. And really have an interest in a more engaged group of participants, and having access to the raw data will allow secondary and tertiary research to happen. And so I think if those sorts of more novel and emerging funders and participants can create those sort of change, then it becomes easier for the larger funders, the HHMIs, the Wellcome Trusts, the NIHs. It becomes easier for them to follow the guidelines and the successes within the work. Because this will be, I think, just we're not going to do all this in one step. There's going to need to be experimentation of the models. And it's easier to do that if you have a larger group of stakeholders doing experimentation as opposed to the U.S. government doing it one way.
I think open access is an excellent reference point actually, because I could very well imagine that as a first step, funding agencies would make additional costs for making raw data accessible and eligible costs in the budget. And at some point when it becomes a normal question, then it could be required as is now with the open access publishing organizations.
Just to clarify, John, when you were referring to the low likelihood of Congress getting anything done, sure, it was limited only to this specific topic and not broader DC politics. So, next question. Yeah, exactly. Question from Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah is thinking about the distance from 1, raw data, to 2, information, to 3, knowledge. And she wants to know, are you arguing that participants should have the raw data so that they can move to information and knowledge on their own? Or is it more a matter of principle, perhaps of reciprocity, that just raw data should be returned to participants?
Well, in first place, I think it's 1, because we argue for establishing reciprocity, and it will very much depend on what data and what context and what participant, whether a participant her or himself can move to step 2. The example of genome data is that sort of a teasing type of data to understand, because the raw information is the information as such, and can be, if it's downloaded, it can be taken elsewhere, and the participant can take the next step. With social sciences data, this may be very different. So, our argument is about step 1, giving access and establishing reciprocity.
I think it's also important to think about data in sort of life course perspective. There's this great paper by you and colleagues published in Washington, which is published in Genetic Medicine in September. They make this argument called self-study management for human sequencing results. So they talk about return findings, so they don't talk about access to raw data, but they do say something very important. They say it's not a one-off thing when the return finding works, but it's sort of lifelong management of information, and you could add to that. Also, if I download the access to raw data, it's not a one-off event, it's useful then, and I just something we would accept for a moment. But it could be useful sometime in the future. It could be integrated with something else, and all these examples that John already gave of what could do with these data sets and utility sets is not immediately obvious, but it's exactly meaningful there.
And just to that point, this is where you get into sort of the 23andMe box, right? Which is the interpretation of this kind of data isn't simple, and it's not something that even the experts agree on a regular basis. There are some tools on the web where you can upload SNP files, exome files, and get an annotation set back some of that information as opposed to just the data. But the truth is that even the experts have trouble going from data to information to knowledge to wisdom when it comes to genome structure. And in terms of what choices you should make about your health based on what information or what knowledge comes out of your genome. And so, part of why I believe in this is I think it's going to, as a policy, it's more likely to accelerate the transition from data to information, knowledge, to wisdom, if more people have their data in their hands. When the data are really clustered in the hands of a small group of people who have a small set of tools to interpret them, then there's no pressure to create better tools as consumers to make that transition more accurate, more user-friendly, more pleasant, and more distributed, where I think a lot of people have raw data. That creates a market. It creates a market for startups, it creates a market for publishers, it creates a market for healthcare providers. And right now there's no market, because there's going to be 500 GIs on all the data for the hardware.
Thank you for that. Fascinating point. Following on that question I had, I think we sort of touched on it a little bit, but even assuming that we do move forward with this, and how do we count the fact that even in that scenario, no data is perfect after our errors, and any sort of scientific investigation. So even that's most expert geneticists know everything there is about various interpretations of data. Then what we say when we give data all data, people say, hey, well, just there are probably glitches in here. How do you that's a problem for even those expert people. How do you deal with that when you're just giving it out to the layperson?
Of course, that's absolutely an issue, but it's the same issue, as you mentioned rightly, that researchers are facing now and that they're familiar with, and that is part of the everyday research reality. And they, of course, also know from the clinic that even if information is transmitted with a suggestion of certainty, all clinicians know that it may turn out to be otherwise at some point, and that's also the uneasiness about returning of findings. And I personally think that if this becomes an established practice to give access, to give the option of access to raw data, that the same disclaimer that actually is already in place in clinical and other contexts will be enough, or maybe enough, that it remains to be seen in this practice for people to be aware that this is not the whole and complete truth forever. And maybe with raw data, it's a little easier to understand and to accept than when you assess across your position and you're being told the interpretation of some tests.